Hi, I'm Jim with Marine Electronics Installation, and this is our last video on Sonar in our series. If you made it through our other videos, that's great. I know this material can be pretty dry and boring at times, but hopefully you're learning a lot from it. Today we're going to talk about beam width. Beam width, a lot of transducers have different beam widths or beam angles. And what that determines is how much of the seafloor that your sonar can actually see underneath your boat. The picture that you'll see, I'll put up a picture here on the video. You can see a diagram of how it actually works. The deeper the water you're in, the more seafloor is covered by the same transducer. If you take a look at the next chart, it's an example of the coverage of the seafloor in different depths of water with different beam angles. If you're in shallow water, sometimes a wide beam works really well, because if you've got a narrow beam, you may only be covering 10 or 20 feet of seafloor. You might be missing a lot of detail. So sometimes for shallow water, a nice wide beam angle transducer works real well. In deeper water, typically you don't want a really wide beam unless maybe you're trolling, trying to cover a lot of area for bait fish, pelagic fish. But a lot of times when you're bottom fishing, you're looking for ledges or structure or fishing artificial reefs, you would want a narrower beam so that you know that you're right on top of that structure. A lot of common models, have a low and high frequency element inside of them, and each frequency can have a different beam width. Typically, low frequency has a wider beam and a larger area of coverage than what high frequency does. Although some of the newer transducers, you can get matched angles on low and high, so they're both, say, 25 degrees for both. So even though you're changing frequencies, you're covering the same amount of seafloor below the boat. There are just a bunch of different angles on different models of transducer, so you need to look at the transducer you're considering for your boat and decide if that's going to work for you, if you want more coverage or less. A lot of times, real narrow coverage will allow you to get right on top of a small spot, but with the narrow coverage you may be missing other structure in the area if you're looking for it. A lot of times a wide beam will help you find new structure and new fishing spots, but at the same time, if you're fishing in 100-150 feet of water with a wide beam transducer, you may actually have your fishing spot show up on your sounder, and you could be 60, 70, 80 feet off of that spot and it still shows up on your screen, so you end up anchoring up and not catching very many fish because you're not actually on your spot. So even though there are some advantages to wide beam, being able to find new spots, sometimes it's a disadvantage when you're trying to anchor up over small structure. So what you really need to do is, talk to some local guides or talk to a local installer that's done some fishing and find out what they recommend for the type of fishing that you're doing. Oftentimes you can call the manufacturer, get a little bit of advice from them, but they may be in a totally other side of the country or a different area than you are, not familiar with the type of fishing in your area, and although they may know the transducers pretty well, they may not know what will fit your needs. So local guides, local installers, good places to check, and make sure you get a transducer that fits the type of fishing that you're going to be doing. With that said, that's going to wrap it up for our transducer series. Thank you for watching, and we hope that you learned from this.